Students are showing up. Excellent. Hi, welcome to Inside the Film Business. This is Mr. Scott Kirkpatrick, and Scott is the author of Writing for the Green Light, How to Make Your Script the One Hollywood Notices, and we're going to be talking about just how you do that. We're here at the college, and there's film students behind me and around me, and so good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you here.
No, thank you for having me. This is great.
All right. So, Scott, let's do this. Can you talk a little bit first about your background, how you've come to do what you do, working in distribution and sales and acquisition, and come to write a book for aspiring writers and filmmakers, your path, and then we'll bridge somewhere from there into their paths and how they can make similarly their dreams come true.
Perfect, sure. So I got really passionate about movies and TV when I was probably about 8 years old. And kind of then wanted to get involved in the industry, wanted to be a writer-director, started directing my own movies on VHS cameras back in the day when I was about 10, and did that through most of my teenage years, and kind of said, okay, I want to go to film school, do this whole thing, move to Hollywood, be a big-time director. So I go to film school, and I went to film school at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. So it's in the Midwest, and the reason was that when I was a teenager, I thought, okay, well, I can just focus on being a great filmmaker, and if I get terrible grades, the great film schools will see my talent, and I'll be able to go to those. And it didn't happen. I got rejected by a lot of the big ones just because of my grades. So I wound up at Wright State University, and it was an excellent film school because it was very much as I was saying yesterday, kind of a blue-collar film experience. We had really crappy equipment. Nobody really understood what filmmaking was in Dayton, Ohio. So we kind of had to go make our shorts and everything and negotiate everything kind of from a grassroots level. So got great experience there. But the thing they never really taught me, and what I was never able to figure out when I was a teenager, was kind of what I call filling in the gaps of real-world experience education. What that is you can read a biography on Martin Scorsese or Tarantino or any of the great filmmakers, and they talk about how they got this independent production off the ground, and they went out and they raised $500,000 to do it, and they fought the system and got this movie out there. But they never really tell you who these people are that invested in the movie. They never really tell you how they were able to get all that money and why people were giving them this money and how they kind of got their projects from point A to B. And I kind of assumed when I was a teenager, I'd figure this out later in film school. That's what the education is for. They never really taught me that in film school. They taught me the craft, but they never really taught me the business of it. And so when I moved out to LA, at first I was going for the route of the creative side. And I wound up as a production assistant on a bunch of terrible movies. And I had no idea why these movies were getting produced and all the great ones that I wanted to be a part of. I wasn't on those sets. And just kind of one thing sort of led to another. And eventually I got brought into bigger and bigger movies as a PA, but I never really broke that cycle of just being on set, trying to write scripts, trying to get projects in motion, and then realizing that they weren't moving from point A to point B the way that I thought they might. So I was never really figuring out how that worked. Later in life, I kind of got involved in the distribution side of the business. I got invited to Cannes for the first time. I went over, I started brokering deals on the business side of it. I never really understood that there was this entire foreign sales world. I never really understood that there was this entire team of people long after you finish shooting a movie or even finish a movie who deal with the movie to make back all the money that is spent producing it. And I got involved in that, and I'm still in that, and that's what I kind of fell in love with. Is I get as much, if not more, creative satisfaction out of brokering deals, putting deals together, and making all that move. And then only kind of when I got into that business world that I realized I now knew all the answers that I was curious about when I was in film school or when I was a teenager. Where does the money come from? How do you put projects together? How do you get somebody to invest in a project? Why would they invest in it? Et cetera, et cetera. So I figured out all those answers, and I wanted to put those into a book. And then we talked yesterday quickly about this. I wanted to put together more of a book that was hey, this is how you really raise money for movies. This is how you really distribute films. This is how you can make a project and make all your money back and do like a real smart distribution book. And I was pitching that to publishers, and they're like, you know what, it's just not sexy enough. And I was like, well, what works? And they said, people want to know how to write screenplays because they can do it on their own. They don't need to go hire an army of people and go put something together. They can just pull out a laptop and get to work. So they want something that's accessible and easy. And so I said, okay, well, I don't know anything about screenwriting, but I know everything about distribution. So the concept of the book is, I'm not a screenwriter, but I can tell you everything that we in Hollywood need to keep our system in motion, which is producing movies, getting movies out there, and making money. And these are the movies we need to produce so we can keep that cycle going. So if you write those kinds of scripts, you'll see a lot more success. That's kind of the concept of it.
So the bottom line, Scott, is what is the film industry all about?
More or less, in a big picture view, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
It's about dollars and the successful releases and making money and profit?
It is a business. It has always been a business, and it always will be. If money is not... The only reason people invest in movies is because they can make money off of it. And I think it's a very valuable thing for anyone who's very young or new to the business getting involved in it, is to realize that at the end of the day, they have to be able to speak about their projects to people with a money-driven point of view. Even if they don't want to all the time, even if they want to stay on the creative side, eventually you will have to be in a room with a person who has money on the mind and doesn't care about the type of project. They just want to see what the bottom line is and what the return is going to be. And you have to be able to speak to them as passionately as you do anyone else on the creative side.
So I got this great movie. It's the best movie I've ever written, and it's going to make a ton of money. Will that suffice?
No, it will not. It will not. And the reason why is because you're telling me about you, you're telling me about your needs, you're telling me what you want, and there's absolutely no understanding of the fact that everything you want, you really want because you want it, and it costs a shit ton of money on our side.
Well, duh.
Yeah, if there's not a plan of action on our side to get it from point A to point B and get all that money back, it doesn't go anywhere. And if somebody's coming into a room and pitching like that, the truth is you're not answering to any of the needs that we have. So
I'm basically, my foot is falling out of my mouth. I'm demonstrating what little I know about the business when I pitch like that.
Correct, yes.
So
I hear people pitch like that all the time. So.
I bet you do.
Yeah.
So it's what's in it for me is what I'm pitching, as opposed to what's in it for you.
Correct. Here's how I can help you. You got to think of it like this. And look, I was just thinking about this morning because the book business is you would think is very different than the movie business. It's exactly the same. Mm-hmm. The deal that I signed with the publishing company, including the language, was very similar to deals that I signed with producers who were giving me movies. The distribution layout of the books, even the conversation I had with the publishers about, I want to pitch this book. And they go, well, it's not quite what we need. If you shape it like this, you got a deal. And so that's what I did. I shaped my project to meet their needs. Then all of a sudden I was interesting to them.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah. Do
you feel that artistically you sold out by tailoring it to their needs?
Not at all. Because I got, my view with it was I really wanted to, first off, it was a goal to write a book in general. And I'm no novelist, so I had to go nonfiction. But the idea was to help people new to the business understand that look, if you want to get into screenwriting, if you want to get into filmmaking, anything in the movie business, it's extremely competitive. There are tons of people who want the exact same thing. But the truth is, it's a lot easier to actually get from point A to point B than you realize, because even though there's all these, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of hopefuls, of Hollywood hopefuls in the world, most of them are trying to produce the wrong stuff. They're trying to write the wrong stuff. And if they just wrote their scripts a little bit differently or approached their careers a little bit differently, they'd see huge traction.
That's awesome.
And it's like, if you're pitching a script, if you're pitching yourself as a director, if you're pitching your movie to investors, you got to think of it like a job interview, because you are speaking to a company. They are going to give you money for a service. And even though you can put a lot of your own spin on whatever project you're putting through the pipeline, you got to be able to speak to what they need.
Are they buying? I guess there's a question I have. Are they? Let's say I'm the writer, but I want to direct it or I want to produce it, and I've never done anything like this before. This is going to be my first feature, or maybe I'm smart enough to say I've written it, but I can get a direct. I mean, is there a piece of wisdom that you can share for the emerging filmmaker who has their first project that is getting some interest? In other words, they have listened to you and they have written the screenplay along those lines, so now they have a project that is desirable. Are there things that they can do to kill it by not being flexible, or you know what I'm asking for? Is there a way that they should think about their first project to get it greenlit and go ahead and then follow that success with other successes?
That's a big question.
Yes.
So I would break it down like this. Just on the screenwriting component first. Okay. If you've written, in the book, just to kind of preface what you're saying a bit, I write out what I have 6 goldmine genres that are listed there. And these are breakdowns of what independent Hollywood, which is like the zone of the business that I work in, and it's the zone with the biggest opportunity. People always think studios are the way to go. I got to write a big studio film. Why are the studios always producing Marvel comic book movies these days and remakes? But they're working at a level that is 15 years in advance. Sometimes, they have shareholders to speak to. These are massive conglomerate corporations. And as a newbie, you don't stand a snowball's chance in hell of even knocking on the door of somebody who can make a decision. So don't even try. Like, go into independent Hollywood, which is the most open to new writers, new filmmakers, new producers. Independent Hollywood are all the companies that are sort of indie distribution companies, a level or two below Lionsgate. It's you'll see them because if you're on Netflix, you'll see a big studio movie and you'll see like 5 or 6 movies you've never heard of next to it, but they all have like a cast name or two. The cast name characteristics you want to look for are like Eric Roberts, Dean Cain, these kind of, oh yeah, I know that guy. I can't believe they're doing this romantic comedy type film. Look at those companies that are at the beginning of those movies, and that's a good indicator of the type of companies that are open to new people. The 6 goldmine genres are the genres that when I go to international markets, whether it's Cannes Film Festival, Berlin Film Festival, whatever it is, and I'm dealing with my global partners, these are the movies that are like always in demand. They're always interesting because they're cheap to dub, or even if they have a really terrible dub that's done in a half-assed way overseas, they still sell. And that's interesting to them, and because it's interesting to them, they're willing to put their distribution dollars to our company and broker a deal with me. And if I'm bringing money in, the company's interested, the company I'm working for that employs me is interested in continuing to produce those movies. So as a screenwriter, focus on those kinds of scripts. They're not as fun on the outside as they might seem, but really look at them. I challenge anyone, write a few of those, and you'll see that it offers just as much artistic integrity to put together a story like that. So if you go to a production company and you have those kinds of scripts, they'll go, okay, this is now a writer who seems to understand the reality of Hollywood. This is a writer who seems to understand that we have a need to fulfill, and I will take the phone call, I will talk to them, I will listen to them, etc. You will never sell those scripts that you bring in as the presentation. Those are spec scripts. Those are your resume. Those are, I know what I'm doing. And by the way, you don't want to write one thriller, one creature feature, one action film. You want to find a genre you like, and you want to stick to it, and you want to be consistent. And you want to say that, like, when it comes to action films, I'm an action film writing machine. And then that way, when they go, okay, does this person have the good? They can go, here's one script, it's solid. Here's another script, it's solid. This guy knows how to write this genre well. And then when they have a need in the future of, we need an action film right away, who can write it? I know a guy, this guy can't. And they'll pick up the phone and do it. So it's like, that's, I would say, a real world way of breaking in on the screenwriting route. How you get to directing and producing, those are much bigger topics, but producing side, anybody can be a producer. I meet producers who are lawyers. I meet producers who are producers because they like the movie business, but they want to make their son or daughter an actress or an actor, and they just have the money to do it. But producers are very business savvy, or they should be, the ones who get to make a second film. And their route can be from anywhere with any experience. The only difference is they just need to understand the real business component of it and understand that they have to produce something for the marketplace. And they need to make sure, first and foremost, that they secure a home and an end point of where the project is going to be before they map out everything to get there. If anyone in your class has tried to write a script, or if they've taken screenwriting classes, the age-old thing is make sure you know where your characters end before you type fade in on page 1. You got to think the same way on a film. You got to know where it's going, how it's going to make its money back, and how you intend to get it to those people. Taking it to a film festival and hoping somebody will give you a big check doesn't work. It doesn't really happen that way. Those are windfall stories. They make great headlines. It's not the truth. So to be in a producing type situation, to go in with a project, it's being able to say, I know how to get this kind of money. I know how to get all these scripts. I know how to do all this, and I know how to get it from point A to point B. So you really kind of need experience if you intend to get other people to pay you for the service. If you want to do it yourself, you can do it.
Well, that's
direct.
Go ahead. No, please.
And for directing, in truth, it's, you can do your short films. It's really just constantly getting experience directing, however you can. Whether it's projects you're putting together, whether it's projects you partner with other people and get them to do it. But if you think about, we talked also about putting business first and why that's so important. If you want to go to Hollywood and be a director, if you want to be on the creative side, good luck. Seriously, it's in order to find people who will who put together a giant project, who invest a lot of their time, their favors to get it all in motion, and then just to hand it over to somebody to direct. You've got to have a track record. And so a way, if you're trying to build your own directing career to get around that, would be learn the business, because if you learn the business, you can produce content. You can then dictate who you want to direct it, who you want to polish the screenplay, how you want it to get out there. But most importantly, once you've produced a project or two and you're the producer, you can hire yourself to direct. And I think that's a very important aspect of knowing it truly is a business first. We talked about selling out a few seconds ago, that I feel like I sold out when I wrote the book. No. And the reason is because if you're not doing what the business needs first, you will never really see much traction. But if you take a step back and do the sellout early in your career, which is basically showing Hollywood, showing everyone, I know the rules and I know how to follow them. Now I can bend them in my favor.
It's an excellent answer. I mean, I think of it very simplistically. If I went to somebody and said, what do you need? And they said shoes. And I go, well, I have bread. And they go, no, I need shoes. And I go, I've got a car. And they go, no, I need shoes. And I go, well, I've got a screenplay. And they go, no, I need shoes. It's figure out how you deliver, if you can, and you have anything to do with shoes, or where you can find shoes or something, then give them what they need. And that may be a very simplistic thought, but it seems that the business is fairly upfront with what it wants.
Yes, it is. And
then the creative types simply go, I don't care what they want, I'm going to do my movie my way, and so they then end up bucking all the odds, or confronting all the odds.
It's correct, but you have to think of it like, if you look at look, because of my book, because I do lay it out there and I put the genres out there that I think sell, I've gotten a lot of criticism on YouTube interviews and all that, like this guy, he's so commercial, he's so Hollywood-minded, and it's very true, but I work in it. But look at an architect. An architect can be extremely creative, innovative, thought-provoking with their work, but they have to present their work with rules of building codes, city codes, gravity and laws of physics. They have certain minimums that they have to work around on any given project. And whomever is investing in, constructing that building, they will have their own awkward odds and ends that they want included too.
Right.
So if you want to be a great architect, you have to deal with this stuff. If you want to write for a TV series, if you wanted to write for Breaking Bad has a clear set of rules in its universe of existence. It has people and characters who can only be this way on screen. It has characters who have died. It has characters who are required to die to get the characters from point A to point B. And as a writer, if you're brought in to pen episode 16, you have to abide by all of those. There's rules you have to do. So going in as a screenwriter early on, it's no different. Going in as a producer early on, you have to follow the rules if you want to get your voice heard and get your foot in the door.
Very many excellent points. I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. The students may have questions from time to time, but I also want you to be able to track, where you would like to go in terms of our conversation as well. So, and what's important now? The students here are sophomores to seniors. Some think in terms of moving to Hollywood. Some think in terms of staying somewhere in the Midwest or going to Atlanta or New York or elsewhere. Any thoughts or suggestions about?
The one quick point is that it's very easy when you come from the Midwest to assume, okay, I'm all the way out here. There's no way I can really break into Hollywood, let's say. Like I said, the film school I went to was Wright State. It had a very small film program, but some of my classmates, I looked at your program actually a little bit online just to kind of get a sense of the way it worked. And it works kind of similar to ours, where you sort of have a breakdown process and, different evaluations and all. And they were pretty harsh on us in terms of cutting us down to people who were truly dedicated to it. But like people that I worked with, they left Dayton, they moved to LA, they started as a production assistant, moved into camera, and one guy followed that path and became a director of photography, and he started directing episodes of the Mindy Project. Another friend of mine, left Dayton, came out to Hollywood, worked as a personal assistant for many years, and then moved into working as a personal assistant for Tom Hanks, and then he got offered the job basically because of his close relationship with Tom Hanks to write From the Earth to the Moon. So he wrote the Bible for that, and then he was basically put on as the head writer of the entire miniseries. And then, wrote all those, won an Emmy, did Band of Brothers, wrote all those, won an Emmy. And as I told you before, like, he got offered a job to be the head writer of 24, and he actually turned it down. Like, he kind of got to that level where he could pick and choose the projects he wanted to do. I went to, our school was basically, at the time, it was you went to New York and you went to LA. And there was no Atlanta, there were no other alternatives, and there wasn't a Louisiana tax credit at the time. So today, it's sort of like if you want to branch out and work on productions, there is you can basically go to any state and find film shooting today or TV shows shooting today. And going on set and working on professional sets is a great experience. You learn a lot, but it's in truth, if you want to move beyond just like being a production assistant or getting to, being a lighting guy, once you kind of are a really good lighting guy, you do kind of hit a ceiling at a point, and there's not really anywhere else to move on. The logic is, well, if I stay on set and if I get in the IATSE union and I stick around and I keep doing movie after movie, I'll just be a guy who knows production really well, and maybe I'll get hired on to produce something. And the truth is you won't. And the reason why is you know lighting extremely well, but you don't know all the facets of budgeting and all these other things. So it's great experience to be on a couple of film sets, learn how it works, learn how to wrap a stinger properly, and just know all those little nuances and be able to speak that talk. It's important. But you don't want to do it too long if you really want to build and branch out. It's get the experience, but keep your career moving. And that goes with acting, that goes with anything along those lines. I'm kind of rambling here, so I don't know if I'm getting lost in my answer, but
no, that's good.
I'll keep going. Outside of that, I do know kids that stayed in Ohio, and they do a lot of successful work. They make documentaries. Some of my college professors, and they hired on some students. They made a couple of documentaries that have been nominated for Academy Awards for documentary. So they just stuck around, they stuck local, and they were able to get things done. And then I know a lot of other kids who moved to Louisiana to do the production crew route. So they all went to Atlanta and Louisiana. They do a lot of productions down there, and they kind of stay in that world. But once you go into the production, like the physical production world, you do get very isolated into that world. So it's if you're going to move to Louisiana, Atlanta to do crew work, again, it's fine if you want to stick with that long term. But if you really intend to kind of branch out and want to do the business side, don't stay in it too long because you'll get isolated. There's an old question like, do I have to move to LA? Do I have to move to New York or leave where I'm from? You really don't. But it's very important, just as you want to have crew experience, to have experience in these big cities too. Because you need to know how LA works, how people here communicate, why it sometimes takes a week or two to get a response out of somebody, all that kind of stuff. I think it's important. Ways you can get real world experience, and because look, when you're in film school, it's a very cozy environment for a few years while you're there. You know, you have equipment that's easily accessible. Graduation seems a ways away, and then one day all of a sudden you'll be graduated, and you'll kind of have this thought of like, shit, what do I do now? Like, maybe some of you already have a plan of moving to LA, New York, Atlanta, wherever. Maybe you have friends there, but it's a lot of you might not. You might just be going solo and blind into these places and not really know what to do days before you go and what you do when you arrive. And it's a scary thought, and you should kind of work out some kind of a game plan about ways you can get from point A to point B. One thing you can do, if you want to kind of get LA experiences, you can look for jobs in the movie business that we need. And like, there's the American Film Market every year in Santa Monica, and it's every November. But I can tell you, a month before that, they're looking for volunteers. They're looking for young people to help out. And you can actually get a job working for them. And while you're working for the American Film Market, you have access to all the production companies. You have access to all the screenings. You have access to all these people who can then, you can even be an intern for some of these companies, for these distribution companies, and they can hire you on full time. There's a lot of people who go out and they want to intern with production companies and all that. In truth, look, it's good to get experience doing that, but you got to think like you're working for 3 months for free, and if you can afford to do that, great. I certainly couldn't when I started out, and I needed to get real work and real income in the door. And in truth, a lot of people will go in as interns for companies and work for 3 months, and then there's nothing afterwards. There's no job. There's just all you do is kind of all the grunt work that isn't all that interesting. Or you're doing stuff, but you're only doing a small piece of a high-level project, and you don't really see how it fits in with everything else. So I would advise maybe not going into interning at a company, but if you intern at a film festival or a film market, and I would emphasize film markets over film festivals, those are great ways to gain experience and learn stuff. And you can get paid doing it. If you want to get
Plus, you're in Santa Monica.
Yeah, exactly.
How bad could that be?
Exactly. Very nice area that time of year, so it's a lot of fun. It's if you're gonna move like from Wisconsin or from the Midwest to go to any of these cities, you do have to start like planning ahead early. I would give yourself time and make sure you have a budget. You always meet people who can like move out to LA and put all the pieces together with like a couple $100s in their pocket. But what they never tell you is they're also racking up a lot of credit card debt in the process. Doing that, you don't necessarily do that. If you're able to save a couple $1,000s, ideally aim for 10. It's a big number, but it goes fast when when money's going out the door and you don't have a job yet. Aim for 10, if you have like $4,000, you can get out to LA and get an apartment and kind of get yourself settled. New York is a little tougher. You might need a little bit more money. So that's kind of, I guess, I could really start with that.
That's very cool. Well, the point of interning at the film market, for example, or the festivals, as you said, is one, you get the experience. Two, you have access to all these companies. You also can network. So I mean the advantage of, and you get to know who the people are.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, knowing who the companies are, knowing what the people are, knowing what they do, how they do it. You know, depending on the extent that you're around because of whatever you're doing. But
correct. Yeah.
But you know, obviously, it's a sounds like a marvelous way to kind of get your foot in the door and negotiate the business side of this industry.
Yeah, there's a couple. I mean, American film market is a big one, and it's a great one. You can volunteer for it, or you can actually get hired, and like I said, they'll pay you like minimum wage, but I mean, at least it's income coming into your pocket while you're networking, which is great. When you're starting off, the best sort of approach is to think of ways that you can network that don't cost you money, because usually when you're young, you don't have all that much, and there's a lot of companies, there's a lot of programs that will say, hey, come to this marketing event and you can network and we'll charge you XYZ admission fee. And all you're doing is you know, you're paying a lot of money to do something essentially you can do for free or you can do to get paid. American film market, you can get a job doing, I'm blanking on others right now.
That's fine.
You got me out of bed earlier than I usually do. But nevertheless, you know. Well,
the bottom line is that if they write a movie or produce a movie or direct a movie, or maybe even if they get to the point where they're a recognizable actor starring in a movie, there's a good chance they're going to end up at AFM anyway.
That's true,
down the road.
Yeah.
So the earlier they get in and understand it, you know, they've traversed the grounds before they're there on business, so they would know more about the rules and the decorum and the protocol and the etiquette and the stuff that would be useful when they're there pitching a deal or there with their posters or there with their projects, trying to sell it.
Correct. And if any of you in the classroom do this, I will just stress, like, that's not the time when you're in.
Right.
Let's say, it's not the time for you to be pitching your story. You just observe. Take the 2 months of getting low income to just observe everything. Listen to how people talk about movies. Listen to how deals get structured. You will hear things you never considered before. You will hear conversations about the star power of actors you never gave a thought to, and that's. AFM is real indie Hollywood, like in motion, and that's where you're really going to get your foot in the door and move things. Another thing you can do, you can be an extra on movie sets. I used to do this actually for a while, where you can go be an extra. You can get hired, again, like for minimum wage. But at the time, I was like a lighting guy, and I was in IATSE doing electrical work. And I would go on sets as an actor to be an extra, and I was an extra in One Tree Hill. I was an extra in Talladega Nights, and you'll also notice, I don't know if you like pull up my IMDb thing, like I worked on those movies too. And the reason is I got on set, and then while I was on set during a break, I'd go like talk to crew guys and just be like, hey, I'm just here, to get on set. But basically, I want to see if I can get a job as a grip today. Like if you ever need extra hands as a grip, here's my card. And I would get phone calls that way, like, because you're cutting out all the excess, you're getting in there, and you're getting paid now to network. You're getting paid to be on set, you're getting paid to network. And while you're on set and standing around as an extra, mouthing fake dialogue or whatever, you can also take a moment to really look around how many people are on set, how much gear is there, all the location permits it took to be there, and remind yourself the only reason this is all being paid for, including your salary, is because somebody stands to make a lot of money, and that kind of circles back around to what we were talking about, which is that the only reason you're producing movies in the first place is money. Somebody's making a lot of it.
It's excellent.
I would also learn as much as you can about the economics of film, as much as distribution. You can learn about self-distribution through a lot of great sources these days. We talked Jason Brubaker and filmmaking stuff. He's a great resource for how to get stuff out there on your own. And when you start to kind of push content on your own, if you're making your own short films, or even if you try to put together a feature, you'll realize like how all that works, and you'll kind of learn the odds and ends of the back end of stuff. So.
Excellent. Very, 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 very good. And I just want to highlight again what you said. When you're interning or PAing, that's not the time to be pitching your projects. That's the time to be observing and learning and interacting in a way that adds your value without you trying to sell yourself to them. You sell yourself by being good at what you do when you're on the set, or when you're volunteering or being paid to be a worker at AFM. You're not being paid to say, oh, by the way, I have a screenplay in my truck. Can I show it to you?
Correct. At AFM especially, or at any of these moments, observe, observe, observe. Listen, pay attention to patterns, any of that. After the market, once you kind of have a stockpile of, let's say, 10, 15 contacts you can go speak to, that is a good opportunity. And that's a good opportunity to kind of open the door to say, hey, I had an interest in this. I've put a few scripts together in the past. Could we talk about them and see what kind of a response you get? And honestly, like I would say, at least a third of them are just not going to respond to you. Like they don't care, But the others will. They will take an interest, especially if you're coming to them with scripts or content that's going to make their job easier. That's going to fulfill a need that they have. We can talk quickly about the writing arsenal you're really going to need.
Yes, exactly. I was hoping you would go there.
So in the book, I talk about the 6 goldmine genres. If just throw a dart and hit one and go for it, and you'll see better results than if you try to write a coming-of-age story or a comedy or something like that. First, let me break down why dramas don't work, because a lot of people want to write dramas, especially when they're new. In the international marketplace and on television broadcast deals that I close, dramas are like dead weight. Unless it has huge cast, which means a lot of money has to be spent to secure them, they really don't move the needle all that much. And so, unless it's a studio-level film, there's just not an output for them. And we should talk about that too, like output deals and how films actually get funded, pre-sales for, and stuff as well. We should talk about that.
Yeah, let's do that when you're finished with this section. Feel free to go right into it.
So dramas are there's very, very limited space for them, and because there's very limited shelf space for them on television channels and in international output deals, there's not a high demand for them. Comedies, and I criticize for this a lot just because people are like, comedies make a ton of money. They do. Studio comedies make a ton of money because they know how to be marketed in the U.S. But on a global scale, and you got to remember, Hollywood thinks global. The United States is just one country out of 187 marketable economy in the world. Comedies are extremely expensive to dub. And social nuances here in the U.S. do not translate in a foreign country. If you talk to somebody in France about football, they think you're talking about soccer. Nobody understands what Thanksgiving is. The closest people who do are the Canadians, and they celebrate it in October. So you got to think global. And comedies tend to be very focused. They tend to be very niche. And even if you're going slapsticky sort of the best way to go, and even the slapsticky stuff, it has to be kind of produced by a foreign country with a foreign known nonverbal, like Rowan Atkinson type, to really make things work. So comedies, it's like, yeah, they can make a lot of money, but you really have to know what you're doing. You really have to put the project together at the top down. So then that kind of leaves open all the other stuff, and that's what we talk about in the book. And I can outline those genres real quick, but it's basically a Christmas dog adventure. And what that is that Christmas movies sell wonderfully internationally. There's 2 months every single year where the world will just acquire anything with a Christmas tree on it, because there's massive market appeal for that. So you can write a really piece of shit script, But if it's a Christmas script, like people will pay attention to it. I'm not saying go write terrible stuff, but and if you put a dog on the front cover and on a family safe movie with a Christmas tree and title it like, golden retriever, or like if you replace the reindeer with golden retrievers, I mean, just something ludicrous, that sells so great because you're hitting kids as an audience. I talk about women in peril thrillers, Lifetime Movie Network, A&E. I mean, there are dozens of entire channels that cater to this genre, whereas if you write drama, you're talking about one slot every few weeks. So you're just opening up a wide chasm of content that's needed by the business versus really isolated stuff. There's tween girl films. Like, tween girls are the most likely demographic to click buy, or rent on iTunes or anything else. And as a male, if you're sitting there rolling your eyes going, I don't want to write tween girl movies. If you can write tween girl movies really well as a male, like Hollywood will be like, that's real talent. That's real talent at work. There are creature features. These movies are just fun. This is Sharknado. This is Arachne Squad. This is, I just bought 2 of them for the company I work for. We released one called Cowboys versus Dinosaurs. We released another one called Avalanche Sharks. I mean, they're not good movies, but like if you're talking to middle America on a Friday night and they have an option of stuff to take a look at, I'm not talking about the highly educated film connoisseur. I'm talking about mass market appeal. It's the stuff they look at. And you're not dumbing yourself down writing it. You're smarter for writing it because that's what people want.
To look at the success of Sharknado, I mean, people wanted it. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is what people are getting on the weekends is an important thing to pay attention to.
Yeah, and a red box machine is a great example. What you see on Netflix, what you see on Hulu, use these as sort of your filter and your guide of this is what people want to see. Look for, like I said, look for the big studio movie, and then look for all the movies you've never heard of next to it that you would never think about watching on your own, or you just watch it as a joke. Because chances are that's what a lot of people are looking at for just fun entertainment after a hard day of work.
Can you still have genres to go through, and I don't really mean to interrupt you, but there's a reason why all these other movies are there with the big studio picture. In other words,
yes.
Network. Can you kind of speak to that, even in the middle of your genres or afterwards? The fact that the point is that your company and others are buying these because there is a need to buy these.
Correct. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make 2 quick notes. That way I can keep all this in order here. Studio. Okay, I'll quickly go through the other 3 genres, get those off the table, and then we'll walk through outputs and how all this kind of stuff pieces together.
Yes, please.
Action films, I call it the aging male action film. These are movies that star Jean-Claude Van Damme, Dolph Lundgren. They have a picture of Dolph Lundgren on them, even though he's clearly like not in an action scene. He's just because they hired him for 1 or 2 days of filming just to get him to appear in the movie. And then around him are all these explosions and shit. And the thing is, you can produce a movie like that for $800,000 to $1.2 million, get the name in there, and then make 3 times that amount of money in Asia and Europe alone. So these are movies, like I said, Jean-Claude Van Damme is in them. They're kind of in the bottom corners of these things, next to the big studio films as sort of add-on titles. The VHS days, they'd sort of be like in the back of the blockbuster. But there's big turnover and need for those movies. There's young boy adventure films. So these are movies that are like Spy Kids. Even though Spy Kids was a studio movie, the script it hits the genre really well as far as just a gold mine genre. It's kids who are the heroes, kid heroes having an adventure. So that's kind of how all that pieces together. Going into the international outputs and how we put projects together. I'll quickly walk through a scenario.
Please.
that gives some highlight to this. So on Friday, I had a meeting at William Morris, and I'm meeting with an agent there, and I'm meeting with my vice president of original series at our company. The conversation we're having is, how can we, I work at a company now called Mar Vista Entertainment. We produce like 20, 30 films a year. We produce movies for Disney, Nickelodeon, Lifetime, Sci-Fi. We have major output deals internationally. And so we went into this meeting with William Morris basically to figure out, okay, we can bring production to the table. We can bring money to the table. We want to broker a deal with Vimeo. Vimeo is right now, it's a digital platform, yes, but digital platforms are replacing TV channels. It's a trend we've seen for years going on, but Netflix is now producing content, Amazon's producing content, Hulu, and Vimeo. And so just as we produce movies for Nickelodeon, Disney, Lifetime, Sci-Fi, as I was saying, we're now starting to do the exact same business model, which is produce content for digital platforms. So I'll go to New York in a couple of weeks to meet with Vimeo. I talk with them all the time, and I know the head of development over there. And more or less what I'm trying to do is get Mar Vista and get Vimeo to broker a deal. Vimeo puts up 50% of the money. Mar Vista puts up 50% of the money. My side, Mar Vista, we bring all of the technical expertise, the production. Vimeo has the platform, and they have the audience. So it's no different than a TV channel deal. We need William Morris as the broker because they can grab their cast members, they can grab their directors, they can grab all these people. So more or less, Vimeo puts in 50% of the cash, Mar Vista puts in 50% of the cash. We take 10%, it goes to William Morris. Vimeo takes 10%, it goes to William Morris. And we've more or less put together a series. We know who's producing it, we know where the money's coming from, we know where the platform is, we know who's going to be responsible for putting all the casting elements in place. And notice that nowhere in here do we have a name of the series. We don't have a script. We don't even know what the hell we're shooting. We don't even know when we're shooting it, when we're releasing it. We put together the framework of a deal first. So we have all these elements together. We have the entire project stitched together. And then we go, now, what do we want to make it about? What do we want to produce? Well, Vimeo will say, you know what works really well for our audience are these types of categories. And then Mar Vista, my side, will say, okay, well, out of those three categories, we can do this one very well. Okay, done. We know we're doing that genre. We're doing that category. And then we go to William Morris and we say, who do you have that meets that category? And then they come up with a list of cast. And then we go, okay, we have a concept, we have a genre, we have a cast. Now let's go hire a writer, and we'll hire a producer to put it together. That's how we do it. So it's completely reverse engineered. We start at the very end knowing all those details. We build a framework around it, and the production element and those being hired in that production zone are actually quite, their overall participation in the process is very limited. It's limited to those weeks of production or post. Or distribution. Their job is basically to either act in it, to write it, or just being brought in to kind of manage the project from point A to point B. No different than the way Procter & Gamble or Caterpillar would hire in a crew to put together equipment on a single project. So that's kind of how we structure those deals, and that's why those goldmine genres are kind of so important, because those tend to be the most likely types of projects that we go after, that we would put together in a scenario like this. I'll quickly talk about, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, that a point that you made earlier was there's spec scripts that you write aren't the ones that are going to get produced, but it's going to be it's going to make your stable of professional writers who you would call on for this kind of deal. So if some of these students or other people, listeners of this or readers of your book, went ahead and then developed a niche genre and got good at providing the essentially the bullet points, the plot points, the story points, delivering what you need, then for lack of a better term, they go into Rolodex. Of this person is great for this genre, so if that genre is now one of the output deals that is stitched together, that may be a writer that is hired.
Correct.
So
absolutely correct.
So by following this formula, they're able to increase their visibility as a professional screenplay writer inside the business of Hollywood,
Yeah,
based on how well they actually deliver the goods.
correct. Real quick, we talked, let's talk like Netflix as an example. So Netflix, obviously they have a ton of money.
Yep.
But when they were a younger company, they didn't. They grew. And what they did as a company, if they said, we want to beat, back in 1999, 2003, that time period, essentially their business plan was, we want to beat Blockbuster, and we want to be HBO for the digital era. That was their model. And they succeeded very well at that. And the way they did it was they presented this project, just like a filmmaker would present their movie idea or a script. They presented this project to investors, and they had a real solid plan of this is how you will gain a return. And even though their vision was to beat out HBO and to beat out Blockbuster, they had to talk to Wall Street guru types in order to raise money and take that company public. Their model for doing this and the way they achieved it was they first went to studios and they brokered huge deals with studios to get their access of content, to get studio movies. Studios are notorious for just raping and pillaging budgets. It's what they do. They bleed you as dry as you can be while still keeping you alive. That's how they work. So they did that to Netflix just as they do to everyone. And Netflix had a very small reserve of money left over. And with that small amount of money, they go to companies like mine and like others, and they will go pick up as much content as they can. Because since my movies are cheaper, we spend between $500,000 and $800,000, sometimes less, producing them. They can pick up our movies for a fraction of the price they would at studios. So that's why you see one studio movie and then like 5 or 6 tiny movies you've never heard of. That way they have the volume. Because if they just had the studio movies, there wouldn't be enough volume on there to keep somebody a subscriber of Netflix month after month. So in order to get that volume, they come to guys like me, I broker a deal with them, and then they take the movie and they put them on there. That way they have enough volume to keep audiences interested. So when we're producing movies, we're producing the movies that Netflix needs. We're producing the movies that Vimeo needs. We're producing the movies that these companies require. And we know about how much Netflix is going to pay us. We know about how much Vimeo or TF1 in France or, some company in Japan, we know what they're going to pay us. So we can put together a budget from that. And then, yes, when we go looking for the project we want to produce, we go hire a writer, we go hire a team, and we build the project to cater to the needs of our clients. And the arsenal you would need as a young writer or somebody else to really prove that you're that kind of writer I would say, if you want to be a screenwriter, you would need 2, ideally 3 feature-length scripts ready to go, fully vetted, done. And you want those of the same genre type. If you really want to get noticed, I'd say write the goldmine genres, or at least just keep them the same type of movie. Write 3 action films, write 3 tween girl films, write 3 of these. That way, as you say, there's consistency. That way, when we're in a crunch and we go, hey, got this great deal put together, I know about how much it's going to cost over here. We need a writer who can put together a tween movie in 4 weeks because we have a production go date because we got this actor secured. Who do you know? We don't go into the stock room with hundreds of submitted scripts. We don't call agents and go, do you have a writer you would suggest for this? We just go, who do you know? Let's get it done. Pay him XYZ and let's get it in. And if that writer can't do it, forget him, let's do this other one. And so I would say you need 2 to 3 scripts. I would say you need at least, shoot for 10. If you got 5, that's probably more than enough. But 5 to 10 solid, fully vetted, fleshed out ideas. Use that Blake Snyder beat sheet as a good example of when you know it's fleshed out. And the reason is and keep them all in the same genre. And the reason is if you get that pitching, if you need all this like before you really start contacting people. And yes, it takes time to get to take advantage of it to build your craft. You need all that because if you go to AFM and you volunteer and you build that network and you consistently build and grow that network, when you call these people and they say, what do you got? You can say, I got these, send them in, and then they say, what else do you have? You always want to have a solid, smart, ready-to-go answer. It's not just screenwriting. You can apply this to acting. You can apply it to directing. You can apply it to anything. But screenwriting is just an obvious one because it's a solid script in front of you. And then that way, and the other comment people always give me is like, won't you be typecast if you do the same genre? And the truth is, yes, you will, and that's an awesome dilemma to have. When you're typecast as the guy who can, as the person who can deliver a tween girl movie in 3 weeks, you'll get a lot of work. And you know, we've discussed acting before. Like, if ask any actor who's typecast, and like, it's the easiest thing in the world for them because it's like if they need, you know, a person who fits this type, they get a call all the time. They may not even be the best actor, but they get the call all the time. You want to be that kind of writer. Talent's very important in it, but it's also strategy and how you're going to present yourself out there for everyone else.
I think this is just absolutely golden information in terms of strategy and building a plan and knowing how to approach businesses like your business and people like you and do it. Is there ever a time when some of the students, a listener, could come to you and go, Scott, I got this idea for a movie, and tell you it, and it might be something that you go, wow, that's cool, that's a good idea, I'd like to do it. Or the person says, I have a tween movie, and this is the idea. Are you likely to read the script that they offer? Or is it simply more that the formula you've described is the typical path 99% of the time? I mean,
yeah, 99% of the time it works like that. You bring your spec scripts, you get attention on that. And I will probably never read the script. It'll go to our reading department, and we will have people read it there. In the book, I outline things you can do to like make your script more easy to pass through the system because it goes through so many gates and filters along the way.
And that's what you mean by vetting? Earlier, when you said have your script vetting or your idea vetted, so this is just so that the listener and the viewers know that the more they hit the points that you're making, the easier it is to get past the reader and move on up the into the process.
As a screenwriter, your work is being evaluated not just for the script. Your talent as a writer is also being evaluated, and it's okay to have a weak script. Okay, let me rephrase that. If your script isn't as good as the company needs it to be, but they like your writing, they can then hire you on and they can still consider you as a writer. That's your real objective if you're going to go into screenwriting. It's not to sell the script at hand. Your spec scripts are just samples of what you can bring to the table so that you can get hired. So even if the spec scripts, they go, you know, it's not really our taste. I would have preferred this script to go this direction, but the writer's really talented. He knows the genre well, and he knows how to write for our readers. He knows how to write for our line producers to make a movie that is easy to shoot and is cheap to produce. He knows how to hit these. He or she are writing a film that is open to global needs, meaning, like I said, you don't talk about Thanksgiving, you don't talk about American football. It's just it's easy on the international eye. So if you're a writer that's producing all those, you can get really, really high marks for being a talented writer who can deliver the goods. And you know, even if your individual scripts aren't getting purchased, and frankly they rarely would. They rarely would.
So, but this is really valuable because so many people think in terms of I'm writing a screenplay to sell the screenplay, and what you're saying is you're not writing the screenplay to sell the screenplay. You're writing the screenplay to create a career as a professional writer and to get hired as a writer on numerous projects from here on out.
That's
now,
right.
Once you're a professional writer, you may more likely sell a screenplay that you write because you've got the reputation, you've got the experience, you've got the cash behind you, and all those kinds of things. You might find yourself selling screenplays or producing your own screenplays or something, but the goal is to be a professional writer. If that's what you...
That's correct. And this is every facet of the film business. This is every facet of any career anyone would choose. As a writer, you go in, you are writing the spec scripts that Hollywood needs to say, hey, I get what you need, and I can write. You get hired to be a writer, to write these kind of lower echelon genre pictures to showcase that you can deliver on time and all that. You build a reputation doing that as an individual who can get things done, who works within a budget that's realistic, and you build from that. And then any pet projects you have or personal projects you want to explore, keep them in your back pocket. And then once you have a reputation, once you have a network of people, you can then take those out and people will take you seriously. If you go out and you don't have anything behind you to support it, you got nothing. There's a slogan in Texas. It's big hat, no cattle. You can go in and be the biggest showman in the world and really pitch and present yourself well. But if you don't have anything behind you, you're not going to show it. And the old catch-22 is you have to have sold the script in order to sell scripts. How do you do this? This is how you do it. You go in by writing what Hollywood needs, and then you get hired on to write the stuff that they're asking you to write. That's how you do it. It's not great money. You don't want to jump in and focus on getting an agent too early because agents can hold you back. You don't want to, an agent is a tool that you use later in your career. It's a status symbol. You don't want to go get an agent right away and think an agent's going to do all this work for you. They won't. They're going to broker deals for whoever's already moving content forward. Casting, if you are hopeful into getting into acting agents are required. But in writing, you don't need an agent. In directing, you don't need an agent. So that's, I would say, more or less, that's kind of the gist of it.
I think it's awesome because you're illuminating career paths and plans for people, and that is most helpful because most people encountering Hollywood for the first time, or even after having been there for a while, don't know how to get ahead, and you're helping people to figure out how to get ahead, and I appreciate that. I just want to check. We've got about 20 minutes left, if that's good for you, and I want to check in as soon as to see if they have any particular questions that need to be answered. But this is absolutely fabulous, and I want you to either one, answer their questions, or two, continue with whatever you deem is important during this continued discussion.
Sure, and just for the classroom as well, because it's a short amount of time. Right. If anyone wants to write me an email with a question, feel free. You can use my email address. It's filmmakeradvice@gmail.com. All one word. It's filmmakeradvice@gmail.com.
And you may get more than the students doing that because this is going out.
That's fine.
That's fine. Okay, just so you know.
Yeah.
All right. And the social networking tools appropriate, like Facebook or LinkedIn or any of those things?
Yeah, on Twitter, the handle is @SK Distribution.
SK, meaning Scott Kirkpatrick.
Scott Kirkpatrick, okay. Yeah, so SK Distribution.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Question? Yes, Stephen?
Hello, Scott. My name's Stephen. I was just going to add really quick that on your IMDb page, you don't have a picture there, so I wasn't exactly sure if there was a second Scott Kirkpatrick on there.
Not that I know of, but no, I didn't put a picture up. I didn't deem myself worthy of a $35 purchase. Maybe I should, but
okay. Well, at least now I know that's excellent work on the films you have done. I wanted to know how do you handle rapport with people you deal with in the fiscal world, moving large amounts of money around the world? Have you burned any bridges that you wish you had not, or is it just fine and your network of contacts keeps growing?
I have definitely had fallouts with clients. I have, but I find as long as you're being transparent, fair, and honest, you can stand up for yourself, you can say no, and you can back away from the deal as long as you are clear about your intentions as to why. Look, when I was 21, 22, I was terrified. I was scared shitless, frankly, of burning bridges. And the truth is, I was probably much more terrified than I needed to be, and I didn't stand up for myself as much as I probably could have back in the day. it's okay to negotiate, it's okay to ask for more, it's okay to say no. So when I've been doing deals with major clients, I have had to say no to large amounts of money for the better interests of companies that I've been working for, even though it would mean a much bigger commission for me or a much bigger opportunity. And as long as you are just clear as to why you are backing out or saying no, it's okay, and you're not going to burn a bridge. They will always, as long as you're respectful to them, they'll get it, and they understand.
Excellent. Yes.
My name's Kevin. I was wondering when you have those spec scripts, what if you really want to get one of those made? What advice would you have for those people?
So if you've worked hard on a spec script and you're really passionate about seeing that particular spec script produced, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Right.
Other than just, if you're focusing it on the kinds of genres we're talking about, and it's the type of genre that's like a very commercial, Hollywood needs it genre, then you can put together an argument. However, if it's a genre that's more personal to you, let's say it's a coming of age story, a drama, something a little bit more niche, I would not use it as a out of the gate, this is what I can write spec script. I'd hold it close to you, and I would give it to people after you've built a little bit of a reputation. A spec script is kind of a wide open phrase. It can mean sample, it can also mean, it's something that just hasn't been produced yet. If it's something you're passionate about, I would not throw it at Hollywood and say, this is how good I am, bring me in. I keep it close to you. And save it for people after you have a little bit of a reputation, after you have a little bit of something to stand on, to go to people and say, yes, I've written those two movies, I got a little bit of a reputation now. This is a project I'm passionate about and I'd like to put together. So I would never be afraid to, if you're seriously passionate about something, project, holding it close to you and saving it for the right audience. When you're first going into Hollywood, understand it's a business place, it's a market, and you're going in for like the mass push when you're going in there first.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Is it like dealing with Wall Street? Like in the stock market, the clamor of the...
It's not
I don't mean
loud.
that much energy, but I'm just saying that the idea being that things are being bought and sold, but,
It's like if you go to a film, like if you go to Cannes Film Festival, you will sign deals on the spot. They're not huge deals, but I mean, you'll close deals on the spot, but they're with people you've done business with before and you kind of trust. If you're new, you probably won't broker deals on the spot, face to face with people. It's usually lingers after the market a bit. And whenever you read these trade publications, like in Variety and Hollywood Reporter, they're like, hey, this big deal took place like MIP TV is going on right now. I'm not sure if any of you have ever heard of MIP TV. It's in Cannes, France right now. I used to go to Cannes 3 times a year. There's the MIP TV market. There's Cannes Film Festival. There's MIPCOM in October. And the MIPCOM and MIP TV, the television markets, they're not films. They're not as sexy. They're a little bit more business-oriented, selling all of those documentary shows to niche channels. But there'd always be these deals like Fremantle, which is, they produce tons of content. You'll see their logo after game shows and stuff. They inked a deal with this huge company, et cetera, et cetera. I guarantee you, they've been working on that deal for 6 months. They just both waited until a day before the market started so they could get a big splash on the page.
Do address that, because Hollywood is the land of dreams and myth making, and a lot of the stuff, whether it's the total cost of something, whether it's high or low, or how deals are struck, a lot of it is just BS. I mean, a lot of it is fabricated. It's the story that sells things more than what actually happened.
Look, when you see stuff written in Variety, Hollywood Reporter, any trade magazine, it's just as much of a sales and marketing tool that I use getting movies in front of people. When I'm pre-selling a movie to a foreign client in Germany or wherever in Russia, I'm selling them what the movie will be in the future. I'm selling them the poster. The script comes later. I'm selling them the idea so that they buy into the idea. You mentioned Wall Street. Wall Street is buying into the idea. It's buying into the hype. I mean, when Facebook went public, look at all the hype that went with that. It's a cool stock to own. So they pitched it that way. People bought it, and it made a lot of money. That's how it works. It's how it really works. So yeah, it's look. I worked for a company briefly called ICAP. ICAP is one of the world's largest interbroker dealers. What does that mean? When Facebook wants to acquire 60 million patents, and Microsoft owns those patents, and Microsoft wants to sell them to Facebook, all these patents about like facial recognition and all this stuff. Microsoft doesn't want Facebook to know it's the seller because Facebook will try to say, oh, well, we want 6 times the money. So they hire a broker in the middle who can keep both parties silent and just say, we have all these patents on the table, who wants to buy them? So they're very big business, big bottom line oriented thinking. They bought a company I worked for called Moving Pictures. They bought it and it became ICAP Media. And then ICAP, more or less, I had to sit there and evaluate what a library of 1,000 movies was, because they just wanted to know, how much is this worth? How much is our investment worth? How do you calculate 1,000 movies? What do you do? Because they look at it as like cans of Coca-Cola. Every movie has the same value. It doesn't. The way I explained it, I thought about it, and I wound up going back to them, and I was able to explain to them in a Wall Street mentality how much 1,000 movies was worth by using coat hangers as an example. Because a coat hanger, on face value, it's a simple object. Think about it. Some have the twisty top. Some have the clips for shirts. Some are cheap ones you get at the dry cleaners, whereas others are like high-end ones for lingerie. So you can have a wide variety of coat hangers that all have different values, and you can't just say 1,000 coat hangers. You have to say 60 of these coat hangers, 30 of those coat hangers. And that's how I was able to have a Wall Street talk with them about breaking down a library. So it's I don't know, rambling there.
No. But see, this is called Inside the Film Business, and so you're giving us, a picture of how things happen and why things happen. Any other questions? Yeah.
Okay. My name is Ben, by the way. I was wondering how Netflix and other VOD services are changing the distribution market.
In some ways, they're radically changing it, but at the same time, the more they change the system, the more things stay the same. That's a golden rule. In the book, I talk about this heavily, and you should really think about this as you start your careers. Don't follow trends, follow principles. A principle is writing genres that are stable and reliable. The goldmine genres are good examples of that. They're always in need, whether it's a digitally shot movie, whether it's a straight to VHS movie in 1986. The same movies that were selling in 1986 are the same movies that sell on VOD today. New actors, new format they're shot on, same goldmine genres that funnel and fund indie Hollywood. And those are the genres you need to work on. The way these platforms are shaping things is they are just replacing what we know of as normal TV. So Netflix is essentially just replacing what HBO is. They're producing premium content. If you want access to that premium content, you have to pay a monthly fee. Hulu is the interesting one. Hulu it was called AVOD, Advertised on Demand, and now they're becoming more of a subscription service. And I work with those guys quite a bit. We have a lot of movies up there, and what they're doing is they have the premium SVOD opportunity, but they also have the commercial aspect of it, and you can get the two services in one. They're trying to blend those so that you have an SVOD and maybe with some commercials in there too. So this is what's replacing what we call basic cable. So where Netflix is replacing the premium channels like HBO, where there's no commercials, there's more risque content and all that, Hulu is starting or seeming to replace what we consider basic cable, which would be like A&E, Bravo, these channels where you do have to pay a subscription service each month to your cable provider, but you still have commercials in them. And then other platforms like Amazon, they're starting to do original content too, but you kind of get to pick and choose what you want, sort of like what you would do with pay-per-view. So they are shaping a lot of things. I hear people talk about and I've been dealing with the VOD transition since 2008. When people would come in and say, I want all your movies for free, we'll put them on YouTube, make a shit ton of money. No, you won't. But now there's a real model to it. There's a real design. We're just for predictions, we're probably going to move into an era where there's a lot of SVOD services, there's a lot of free VOD and TVOD services out there, and eventually these big companies like DirecTV, AT&T, and these other massive telecommunications companies will start to buy them again in bulk, and you'll start to pay for your DirecTV service or your Comcast service to get your standard issue of channels, except in the future it'll be your standard access of digital channels or SVOD platforms, etc. And they'll give away 3 months of Hulu for free and all this stuff. Like, it'll be the same game. So how that applies to you and what you're doing as young filmmakers, keep writing the same genres, don't change that. Keep, if you want to direct a film on spec or produce a film on spec, keep working on those same genres. The opportunity now is you can make movies a hell of a lot cheaper than you ever could before. As a first feature, you can make a movie for $25,000 or less. If you cash in the favors, and you can completely distribute by yourself without having to go through distribution channels. But if you want to see your movie on Netflix, Redbox, or any of those, you probably will have to go through a distributor. On the 25,000, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish up and then.
I was going to say on the 25,000 movie front, I wrote and directed a movie called Roadside Massacre, which is frankly a terrible movie, and we know it's a terrible movie, but we made it because we know how movies get packaged in a global setting. So we specifically put that together for like $24,000 because we knew how to package it for international needs and for digital transaction here in the U.S. If you look it up, I mean, it's terrible, but it's a good example. You can go out with something that's quite mediocre in the marketplace, but if you are making something for the marketplace, you can see a return. So,
and that being the goal, I can go long if you can go long. I can't go too much longer, but the question that I had, and I want to, you kind of given a great final word, but you may have other final words to give, and I want to remind everyone that the title of the book is Writing for the Green Light, How to Make Your Script the One Hollywood Notices by Scott Kirkpatrick, and we certainly appreciate you being here. But as briefly as the topic can be handled, the good and bad news or the pro and con of festivals, because a lot of people think, well, I've made my $25,000 movie and now I've submitted it to all these festivals and I've paid $5,000 of entry fees, and of course Harvey Weinstein is going to buy it tomorrow, and I'll be up there with Joseph Gordon-Levitt or somebody else. The likelihood of these things happening, or the plus and the minus side of that approach.
So there's festivals and then there's markets, and they're two completely different things. Sometimes they happen simultaneously, like at Berlin or Cannes. But a festival is a celebration of film, and a market is, I have 60 Christmas dog movies and 30 tween girl movies, and I want to sell these to other companies and make some money. The market is really the engine that fuels the machine in the indie world, whereas the festival is the splashy, front cover, salacious, who's doing what. The stories, the windfall stories of, the Weinstein Company bought this movie for $250,000 or for $5 million, and it's going to get this huge theatrical deal. Those make great headlines. The reality of them is that they're so few and far between from ever happening that you cannot bank a career off of that, and you cannot bank the distribution strategy of a movie off of that. I think we can talk, what's his name? He's escaping me. Kevin, the guy who did Clerks.
Smith.
Kevin Smith, yes. Which is like the most obvious last name. Should have pulled it out of the blue. That's like the worst story for young filmmakers to hear, because the guy racked up a ton of credit card debt and then actually flipped the movie for several $1 million and built a career off of it. Great for him. And I'm not really a fan of his movies at all, but great for him that he built a career off of that. But think about all the countless people who've racked up, $30,000, $40,000 worth of credit card debt, and Harvey Weinstein didn't buy the movie, or they didn't know how to finish it the right way, or they didn't know how to get it from point A to point B in the end game, and now they're just sitting with these massive credit cards that they're paying off the rest of their life, and Harvey Weinstein never came in with the check. You can't think that way. Film festivals, if you make a feature, absolutely submit to film festivals, but use it for buzz, publicity, maybe to get some fringe benefits or marketing opportunities. If you win, fantastic. But on the distribution side, if I go to Cannes Film Festival, the market side of it, to sell the movie, and it's got 50 leaf things on there of submitted to this festival, winner of this festival, what that starts to look like in the marketplace is this movie's been around, seems to have been seen by a lot of people, and yet it's still for sale. Something must be wrong. So festivals are good for short-term publicity if you're making your own movie. They're good to gain attention and awareness, but when I go to Toronto, most of the films that are screening at Toronto are already owned. They're being presented as, we have this great movie, so it gets buzz, so that when they go to the American film market a few months later, or a few weeks later, they can have deals in motion with their clients. So festivals are a tool, they are not the answer.
Well,
It's a very long-winded way of saying that.
No, but it's important to know, and some people are so maybe enamored that they've won these awards, and when they put them out there, what you're indicating, and it makes perfect sense, is that you're devaluing your own product if you have too much accolades without a sale being made.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, okay, let's say a screenplay. Should you send screenplays to screenplay festivals? Yes, that's a great way to get your script vetted. If it wins, or if it's selected at the top, that's a great way to say, you're getting past all these stages and people are saying, hey, this script's pretty good, it's got something to say, it's worthwhile. So if you say, hey, I won the XYZ Screenplay Festival, I want you as a producer to read my work so we can maybe work on a project together. For instance, if I'm a writer and you're a producer and you have an idea that you want to, I can maybe write it for you. Like that, if you take that approach and you say, by the way, I also won this screenplay festival, you're vetting, basically you're showcasing, I get it, my work's been seen and it's been taken seriously, etc. If you're a filmmaker and you make a movie and you put it out there on the internet before it's really gone through a distribution channel and you don't have a marketing plan, you devalue it. If you go to 70 film festivals and refuse to ink a deal with a distributor because you are hoping for that big buy at a film festival, it goes festival after festival, year after year go by, and it just devalues. Just appreciates like a car. What's the thing? You drive a new car off the lot, it depreciates 5,000 the second you hit the pavement. It's the way it works. So your movie is a product. It's got a very limited short life cycle. You need to sell it and move it when you have it. Festivals do a 6-month, 9-month run, and then get it a home. And you should really have a plan of what that home is going to be before you start shooting a frame of it.
And finally, my last question. You've been so gracious, and this is certainly well worth all of the information you're presenting. I have a movie, I've shot it, it cost me whatever, or it didn't cost me a dime. What do? Do I come to you and go, I got this movie, and hope that you guys will take a look at it, or another distribution company? I'm not going to do the festival route, I'm just going to try and get distribution. Well, what? Yeah,
you can certainly do that, and all you need to do is, if you have a contact base, that's the best way to approach it. If you don't have a contact base, you can use LinkedIn or a lot of other sites and get some contact details, or that's why it's very important to do the AFM volunteer route, or any of those. You can go to Cannes, you can go to Berlin and do those, but you build your contact base. You write an email, very casual. Your description of the movie should not be a Stephen King novel. It should be 10 to 20 words of, it's this kind of movie. That's why the goldmine genres are really valuable, because then you go, it's a Christmas dog adventure, it's a tween girl romance film, it's this, it's that, and it's very categorized, and people go, oh neat, we need one of those, and they'll take a look. If it's a passionate coming of age story that's deeply artistic, not so interesting, but I'll take a look. So what you want to have ready to go, temp key art. You shouldn't do the key art yourself. Try to, and a university is a great setting for this. Try to have a graphic designer put something together for you. You want it to look good, and recognize that your key art will not be the end result. The key art that's going to eventually go out internationally or to the marketplace is going to be very different because it's going to be a sales tool.
Right.
But yours is now a presentation tool. So you want to have some key art. You want to have a simple description, really less than 20 words of just, it's about this, this, and this. A genre category, so it's just boom. And that's why those words drama or comedy are sort of, we don't really need these, or there's too many variables for this movie not to work. And then you want a trailer. And you can do the trailer, and you don't really need a password-protected trailer, but you can put it on Vimeo, YouTube, anything like that. And you want your trailer to be top-notch, fully edited, fully sound mixed, fully clean, and you don't want to use any commercial music in it. That just makes it look expensive in a negative way, like you haven't cleared the music, so you don't necessarily want to do that. And just have a really polished, simple email that goes out to everybody, and then say, if you're interested in taking a look, I can send you access to the full movie. And when you start getting to the point of doing that, you want to make sure that your movie's completely ready to deliver. There's nothing worse than getting 98% done with a movie and having that 2% not completed. So you need to make sure you have closed captioning, that you have a full audio mix, that you have all your elements pieced together, so that when they say we're interested, you can say, great, it's a ready-to-go package. I get a lot of, just real last second, I get a lot of comments about E&O insurance. On a super indie movie, clear everything, like make sure anyone who's appearing on camera, make sure any logo is blocked out on camera, get a signature and a release form from everybody associated with your movie. You don't need to purchase E&O when you're producing your very low-budget movie, but you will be asked for it at some point. And when you're asked for it by a distribution company, you have two options. You can go buy a policy, which is like $3,000 to $5,000, or some companies will allow you to sign on to theirs, and they will deduct $1,000 or $2,000 from monies that will go to you later. But if you're out of money, that is an option you can pursue. And I think we're out of time. And I hope I haven't rambled too much and gotten lost in any of my answers.
No, you've been very, very valuable. You presented incredible golden nuggets and solid advice for anyone watching or listening, and I truly, truly appreciate it. And certainly want to do it again sometime when the opportunity presents itself. And again, the book, Writing for the Green Light, by Scott Kirkpatrick, excellent book and excellent information. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you for having me. I see a question just behind you.
What's an E&O?
E&O, errors and omissions. You want to explain?
Yeah, errors and omissions. It's basically if you don't have cleared music in it, if you don't have somebody who signed off permission to be in the movie or something like that, if you have a major logo of a brand or anything along those lines, those companies can come back and sue you more or less. If you've omitted or if you accidentally put something in there that you have no control over. So it's protection of that. It's basically like...
Includes locations and...
locations, yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
At a very indie level, it's something you really don't need to worry about, but a company that's going to take on your movie, they're very protective of themselves, and they don't want to be in the middle of anything negative. So it's their way of just protecting everything.
And given what you said, you can go and find a list of what you need in terms of deliverables, the different tracks and stuff that Scott has indicated, and make sure that all of that is ready to go when you approach the distribution company.
Yeah, your film is not finished until it's deliverable. So
thank you very much. I'm going to call you in a little bit from the car when I leave here just to debrief and to say thank you again. But the students, thank you. I thank you. I know that listeners in the future on YouTube will thank you as well. You've been fabulous.
All right, thank you. It was great. Had a good time.
Hey, you too, Scott. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.